Right. So, again, if you are new to the show, the presentation, it's more to keep us on track so we don't miss things and make it a little bit more visually engaging on YouTube, but we will be reading as we go. If you are on a tractor or truck or riding, you can listen along. I acknowledge that we do have people that listen only. Okay, let's have a look. Current situation, real life clients. Just talk us through the data of what happened.
So as Glenn said, this is a real life case study. I've changed the names and also just simplified a bit of rounding of the numbers. But husband, Charlie, 66 and a half, looking to retire at 67, so 6 months away, still working, earning around $90,000 a year plus super. So decent salary. His wife, Diane, is retired. She's 64, looking after the grandkids. Worked for many years, but retired a few years ago. Charlie has super of around $450,000. Hasn't really done anything with super. It's just work's been putting it in for all these years, never really looked at it, hasn't put more money in, hasn't taken money out. It's just accumulated over many years of hard work. Diane actually did have some super, but she cashed it in. She went, what's the point? I've retired.
She DIY'd it.
She took it out. Went, well, I've only got a little bit in there. I'll take what I've got out. And so when they came to us, she had $150,000 sitting in the bank in a term deposit, earning a bit of interest, but not probably working too hard for her.
Okay. Just on that, there's a thing out there, and if you don't know, you don't know. Once you retire, it's not just a call my super fund and pull it out. Because in theory, Diane, if she was scared about the investment, she could have moved it to the cash option and left it in superannuation. So I just wanted to dispel a myth there that as soon as you retire, it doesn't mean, I'm retired, I can access my super, I'll pull it out.
Cash it all in.
Cash it all in.
Ideally, the best way to set up is to turn it into an income stream and live off it, which we'll talk about today.
Get into that, yeah.
So Diane, at the time, had no super. She previously had from work, but had cashed it in. So they had $150,000 in the bank. It was in her name. So they were smart to go, well, it was in joint names and the interest might pay more tax. It was in her name, so they paid a bit less tax. And as mentioned, he wanted to retire in 6 months and they wanted to live off $75,000 a year. After tax, they're mortgage free. They downsized a few years ago, so they were debt free. They had bought a new car recently, had no liabilities, had no other major costs coming up, no house renos, but were just ready to stop working and retire.
And they reckon they wanted about $1,400 a week to live off.
Yeah.
So, and the reason we haven't put house values here because it's really not material, is it? It's it could have been $10 million or it could be $800,000. Yeah. All right. So considerations, and we haven't got any kind of bullet points here, but let's just talk some considerations. You're such a bloody accountant. Like, you send me this stuff to prep, and I'm like, what about the friggin' soft goals? Like, so look, we've added considerations because I think it's important to actually look at some of the soft stuff.
I liked it. The numbers tell the story, which we'll get to numbers, but yes, you're right.
That's right. There's friggin' accountant.
There's a human around all this, which is a large part of it, is that what we do is that we help people retire, but how they want to retire, how much risk they want to take, do they want to prioritise themselves or their kids, or maybe if they still got parents around, all those things actually have to come into the advice or the recommendations.
So I think I want to know this. So we've said this on the show before, your business generally doesn't help people with less than $1 million of assets outside of their house. Why did you guys... so this person didn't need an advisor, so they thought, didn't want one. Why are we doing it?
How did they land on it?
Yeah, why did you guys do this?
Yeah, so this kind of came from, this was a referral or actually a family member of one of our ongoing clients who just said, hey, my sister and her husband, they want to retire. They don't think they really needed help, but we know that you've helped us a lot over the years.
Oh, you're like, all right, send them in. I'll have a chat.
Can you just, they might not need help, but I'll give them a 20-minute phone call, point them in the right direction. If they need advice, I can send them to someone else.
Yeah.
Or if they might not need advice. Yeah. But let's make sure there's no low-hanging fruit to help them with. After that phone call, sent them some Retire Right podcast to listen to and get informed a bit more. And they went, yeah, you're right. You're planting some seeds there, some things that we've missed over the last few years. And for me, and when we go through the case study, there was just some pretty significant value that we could add in a short period of time. I did say that there's another advisor you may be able to work with, but their preference was no, we want to work with Financial Edge Group.
We want to work with the goat.
We were, yes. So they were privileged to do so.
You do have a bit of a goatee there.
Yeah, a bit of goat. Yeah, exactly. Goat by name.
And growing that?
No, trying to probably trim it back a little bit.
Good,
but,
good boy.
So for anyone on the video, it looks looking strong. There's a few white ones in there. So, and again, jumping ahead, we help them.
Yeah.
We more than added value for our fees, and where they probably don't need to pay us for the future.
Yeah,
but
and
there's some value there that we would have done the wrong thing by not helping them for sure.
Now, I will say as well, at the end of this, we're going to put how much you charge them.
Yep.
So stay tuned for that.
Yep.
Okay, so back to the cricket. So general considerations, we don't need an advisor. We're pretty straightforward. When you actually talked initially, did they know that they kind of, we think we just need $1,000, $1,400 a week, or they hadn't thought that far?
They actually thought they couldn't afford that much, and they were worried.
Right.
So he was working, obviously he's paying tax. They weren't putting money into super because they didn't think they could afford to.
Was he self-employed or employee?
No, he was employee. So, sorry, he was putting his
Sure.
but he wasn't putting any extra in.
Yeah.
They were scrimping and saving, and they were looking at, well, we've only got $500,000 or $600,000 in super and assets. How long is that going to last us? The age pension, that's only going to be 20 odd grand a year for one of us.
So there can be some inherent worry that we don't have enough to survive.
That was their kind of, and really that was the conversation with their family members who reached out to us of like, we don't think we have enough, therefore we don't want to pay someone, but also we don't really know, and they're like, push, we'll have a chat with our guy, Martin, and he will hopefully give you some peace of mind.
Yeah, okay.
And so I think there's definitely some worry there, and we'll show actually the projections we showed them of they're going to be okay. They can afford that lifestyle. They're as young as they're ever going to be, and they should retire. But yeah, there are considerations. If they wanted to live off a lot more, well, then the advice would have been different. If he wanted to work for another 5 years, then the advice might have been different. So someone's goals and wishes do impact the advice, but often you don't need to know all those answers the first day you speak to an advisor. Those might appear as you go through the process, and we do scenarios as most advisors do.
Or you might ask questions that people
prompt that.
Don't think about.
If you could afford to retire now and live off that, would you be open to that? Oh, yeah, okay, we would. We didn't think that was actually an option on the table.
Yeah. All right, let's cut to it. The strategies that you ended up implementing, Charlie contributed $50K to super to use as a catch-up concessional contribution. Now, was that part of the 150?
So we used the cash.
Diane's
so
name?
And there's a bit of movement of money here, but yes. So simply we took of that cash savings in Diane's name, take $50,000 out of there. Diane, I loaned it to Charlie. That's fine. There's no tax impact of that. Transfer to him. He contributed that straight to his accumulation super fund. Got the BPay details from the website. Well, we helped them, but send the money in. That's a direct contribution. Don't have to tell work. Go straight to your super fund. There's a special, an important form to send in called a notice of intent to claim, so that he could claim that contribution back on his tax return.
And then the super fund would take 15% off that $50K.
Yep.
And then he can claim that 50 grand
as a deduction against his wages.
Yep. Cool.
So that was very simple. If he came and saw us after he'd retired, that opportunity would have been gone. In hindsight, if he came and saw us 2 or 3 years earlier, he probably actually could have done more. The 50,000 was around, he had more catch-ups to do, but his salary being 90,000, you don't, even though he had, I think, close to 100,000 of catch-ups to do, you don't want to bring your taxable income down too far.
All right, let's talk now about the super funds themselves.
So Charlie was with an industry fund. We kept him with an industry fund.
No, doesn't every advisor move?
Take you to some in-house product that they get commissions on?
Yeah.
Not at all.
Right. Okay. So you're a financial advisor, and this client you just recommended, they stayed where they were.
Yep.
Interesting.
There's nothing wrong with that fund. But he was in the default option. He hadn't changed anything in 20 years plus. Now, we did show there are other options out there, and if you want to have more complex superannuation investments and maybe get the benefits of a wrap account, there are some options there. But again, what we were really trying to help them with, they were comfortable with the fund they were in, but they were in just the default option. So we said, and we went through a bit of a conversation around risk and trade-off and how you invested before, and realised they weren't in the right option for them. Particularly, again, jumping ahead, we were going to draw more heavily upon his super earlier. So we wanted to make sure that if we're going to draw a certain amount out pretty soon, we wanted to stockpile that a little bit. So instead of him having it all in one bucket, we separated into two different buckets. He had a more growth-oriented bucket and a more conservative cash fixed interest holdings, so that he could draw those funds out.
So
sooner.
what you're telling me, within the super fund, you just didn't put him in a balanced default 60-40. You split it, so there was 60% in
a high growth, probably 90% allocation.
Right, and then a 40% in literally a fixed income bucket.
Pretty low, probably close to no growth allocation.
And does the super fund, if he wanted to make withdrawals, can you select in the future that you just want it to come off the
bucket?
Well, that's also and this guy's like, hold my beer. You know, we've just crossed the threshold where I'm about to ask a heap of questions that some funds actually can't cater for. Where, you know, the wrap accounts, your other funds, some other public offer funds might be able to do it. Once you're in pension phase, sure, we've got two pockets of cash.
Yep.
But if we want to draw $1,000 out a week or whatever that is,
but it's bang on what we all do. Yep.
Will the product allow me just to take it from bucket B? Will it be proportionate? Will it only allow you to take it from the one that's got the most in it? These are things that have to be considered. And that's why a good financial advisor will ask the questions, and the current product might not be suitable.
Correct.
So I just want to try and get out there and educate the misinformation and fear when people are like, oh, the advisor recommended I move from this industry fund to this other retail fund or wrap product. There's probably a very bloody good reason that will be better for the client longer term. It's not all about what's the cheapest.
No. And also what's right for one person might not be right for someone else. Do we as a business at Financial Edge Group offer industry funds to everybody? No, we don't. But for this client, for these reasons, that's what we deemed the most appropriate to do so, and very comfortable with that. So, yeah, that is a product-specific question, but importantly, it's a kind of consideration, personal advice kind of question.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Charlie.
So then on back of that, even though Charlie just put 50 grand in, importantly timing here, after we lodged the notice of intent to claim, we then went and withdrew 200,000 out of his super fund to go to cash.
Okay, this is interesting. You said a little word there in terms of the timing. And this is where I don't need an advisor, but do you know this little part of the strategy?
So I'll come back to why we took 200,000 out, but we want to take some money out to shuffle it around. If we put the 50,000 in and the next day took the $200,000 out, you can't claim that whole 50,000 as a personal deductible contribution because you've made a withdrawal. You need to lodge that form to claim it before you withdraw any funds.
So the notice of intent to claim, that's funny. It's like easy, yeah. Put it in, claim it on tax, done. You really, in a perfect world, you've got to do it before you do your personal tax return. Number one.
Yep.
But as best practice, if you're doing this strategy, do it right away.
So you're not going to forget about it.
Or secondary, if you're not doing any razzle dazzle, and you might put more in June, you want to make sure you do it on the 1st of July or as soon as you can.
Yeah.
And this goes the same if you still got rollovers for insurances,
withdrawals for that. If you were doing a spouse splitting contribution strategy, if you're about to go to a pension phase, which he will as well, the timing is critical.
But they didn't need a financial advisor.
So what we then is we withdrew $200,000.
Yeah.
Because he was over 60, it's tax-free, and because he was over 65, even though he was still working, you have the ability to access lump sum withdrawals and or regular withdrawals from your super fund tax-free because you've met that condition of release being age of 65 and over.
It's funny, Martin said to me, it's like, oh, we should be able to do 2 case studies in one episode. I'm like, that's cute. Wait till we get talking. And this is where it does come back to product, potentially sometimes. We're putting 50K in, we're taking 200 out. Are we putting any more money back in?
Not for him.
We're not for him. And then I think my question is, I would imagine if you put money in to the super fund and you're going to pull it out the next week, you probably don't want it to get sucked up and invested overnight. So you'd probably want a product potentially where you can elect that new contributions just sit in cash. And then, then at some point we've got to send the forms in or elect to withdraw. And that could be a week later, or we've got to wait for the notice of intent to claim. We don't want this money that we're flushing through the market to fall. There could be extra transaction fees at a fund level for buying into the share fund as opposed to a cash option. So I don't know. My brain goes in a million directions with this simple 5-point strategy that you've put together.
100%. And even again, there's different tangents. We could have taken the $200,000 out before we put the 50 in if we really want to get complicated. The reason for that is, the reason I didn't recommend that and I recommend these order of events instead is that he had some tax-free portions in the fund. And so if we took the withdrawal out first and then we put $50,000 in and made that taxable, his ratio would have been higher. Whereas at least this $200,000 withdrawal, we can withdraw a decent amount of the taxable as part of that withdrawal. Again,
which flows through to estate planning and
so future planning. So
blah, blah, blah.
Things you do today have a future impact, but also the order of events do have a future impact. And I'll add this while we keep going. We are, I suppose, discussing today on the assumption that there are first-time listeners here, but if there's things we're speaking about today, there are episodes we've done around what is a contribution, what's a concessional, what's a catch-up. Oh, I didn't know I could take money out of super.
Yeah.
We've done episodes about that, so people hopefully can go and find them if they want to dig into some of those
And I would
episodes.
actually say as well, I get people message me on Instagram like, hey, Glenn, you spoke about this on an episode. What number is it? I'm like, I've got no friggin' idea. I do 3-4 episodes a week on a variety of different podcasts. If I need to find something myself that I've talked about, I Google it. Retire Right, Glen James, recontribution strategy, Retire Right podcast, recontribution strategy.
Access to super.
Just throw it in Google and let Google help.
To insult it.
All right. So the last part of this strategy, Diane to start a new super fund. Oh, so we're starting another fund, but even though she closed hers the other day.
Back to the future.
And contribute $200K with the cash that they had and Charlie's withdrawal. Now, talk to us about this, staying in accumulation phase until 67.
So, can Diane go and set up a new super fund even though she's not working? Yes. Can she contribute
up to 75?
She can open at any point. But can she contribute up to the age of 75?
Yes. Okay.
So, Diane is doing a contribution different to Charlie's. Charlie did a concessional. He's claiming back on tax. She's not working, so she doesn't need to claim back on tax. She's doing a $200,000 non-concessional. Technically, the limit's 120 and we're using a bring forward. We could have done more, but this was the right amount to still leave them with sufficient personal cash, but move a decent chunk of super and or cash into her name. It's going to be invested. And historically, it would have got a better return than cash, and we're expecting it will in the future. Because she's retired, we could, if we wanted to, move her straight to pension phase. And there's lots of benefits of being in pension phase. But in this case, our advice is to keep her in accumulation phase. Why is that the case? Because when David applies for the age pension when Charlie applies for the age pension in 6 months, any assets...
David may or may not have been his real name, but we'll never know, will we, Martin?
We won't know. When Charlie applies for the pension in 6 months, the assets inside of Diane's accumulation phase are not going to be counted towards the age pension. And I'll show you how much of that has helped save them coming up soon, but that's the reason. So someone could comment and go, well, she could have gone to pension phase and been withdrawing $500 a week. Yes, that is the case. But the right strategy, you need to understand the full circumstances and what you're trying to deliver. And
But strategy is one thing, but order is another big thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And to maybe, and also ideally, she's going to earn more return on that versus just being in cash over the long term. You're not going to guarantee what's going to do in the next 6 months or so. But is she paying more in fees? Yes, because in cash she's not paying any fees. In the super fund you're paying fees. But we're going to get a better return. We're going to get a substantial increase in their age pension eligibility. If she wants to access that money, if shit hits the fan and she needs to get money back out, she can. We're not locking it away.
And this is also important. And again, if you're new here, thanks for dropping in, and hopefully you're offended by now by me and my comments. No, I don't actually joke. I do offend people. But the myth out there is, we retire, move money to cash, which Di did, and you don't know what you don't know, right?
No.
But the thing is, between their cash and super, call it 600 grand, 500 grand, whatever it was.
Bang on,
They're not going to spend that within the next 5 years.
No.
So the question is, as a rule of thumb, generally speaking, we don't want cash hanging around if we don't need it within the next 5 years.
Yep.
So it needs to go to work because we're going to live another 25, 30 years.
Yep.
I was talking to someone the other day whose dad was 92, and I'm like, oh, is this the beginning of the end? He's like, oh, don't know, maybe. And while I was on the phone to him, I Googled life expectancy 92-year-old male. It was still up at 95 or 6 or 7.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, no, there's still another. Yeah. So let's go to the advice outcomes, and we'll do that now. So, okay, Charlie saved $16K of personal tax. So that's fine, but he had to pay 7.5 in super.
Yeah. And so the way that's also important is we put the 50,000 in. Does he just get that 16 grand straight away? No, he doesn't. He's an employee, so he's paying tax every week on his wages. What's happened or happening when he does his tax return, he will have paid tax on 90 grand, and he probably paid 20 grand in tax. He will actually get a personal tax refund of $16,000 coming directly back to him, personally from his tax return. But to be honest and transparent and be understanding the whole strategy, when that 50 grand goes in, the super fund taxes that at 15%. So he's saved 32% personally. The super fund pays 15%. Overall, a net benefit still of $8,500.
And an advisor will look at the total overall situation. Sure, you might not get it today in super, even if you're doing salary sacrifice at age 50 or 60 and still working. Overall, in your life and your entity, of your personal name and super, overall we want to pay less tax.
Yeah.
So, but there's still 8.5K in front in the first year by this strategy.
Yeah.
Okay. We've talked about the super and the investment structure, so we won't camp here. So that's set up in a less.
It's more appropriate. Again, more appropriate, better or worse. I'll put the word in, maybe less risk. Overall, they've got less exposure to growth assets, but more importantly, more appropriate to what their needs are.
Yeah.
Super funds have to put you into a default. That default may or may not be the right thing for you.
Diane now has a super fund, and as we mentioned, her money over the medium to long term should beat inflation.
Which would beat inflation, whereas cash typically won't beat inflation. Yeah.
And I guess you could say there's been a big educational component to Charlie and Diane.
In this situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, talk to us about this one.
So not only are they going to get the 8.5 grand tax benefit, but in 6 months, when Charlie turns 67, he plans to retire the week before he turns 67, he will be eligible for the age pension. Diane won't be. She'll only be 64 and a half, I think is the way it works out. Because of the strategy we're implementing, he will be entitled to a full age pension for the portion of the couple. We calculated and showed them if they didn't do anything and left the cash in her personal name and left him with a higher super balance, their assessed assets would have been substantially higher, $200,000 higher. What that calculates to is he will get an extra $7,700 a year in got money from the government, Centrelink age pension for the extra 2.5 years until she turns 67. So that equates to an extra $20,000 a year in Centrelink age pension purely by moving some money around and making sure it's sitting in the right pockets.
Gosh. So are you saying, before they sat down and talked with you, that extra tax probably wasn't on the table, the tax savings wasn't on the table, and the extra age pension wouldn't have been on the table?
And they just weren't aware. It's not that. They just didn't. Yeah. They didn't know. They went, work's putting money into super for us. We didn't know we could put more in. Or we heard the cap was 30. It's not much point anyway, but because he had less than 500,000, they could do some catch-ups. They thought by having the money in her savings, in her cash account, well, that might not count. But no, Centrelink will still assess any personal assets, savings, whether the savings was in Charlie's name, the saving was in joint names, or the saving was in Diane's name, Centrelink is still going to count those. The only place to legally hide money from Centrelink is in your own home. The value of home's ignored, and the value of money in super accumulation if your spouse is below the age of 67, which is exactly this scenario.
Let's have a look now at these sexy graphs. And mind you, everyone who's watching on YouTube, I had to change the name because you didn't remove that other guy's, the original woman's name. So that's why the name there.
Yeah, so we've got Diane's like I've added name over it here. So obviously this is a joint projection. It's using the younger spouse's age in this case, being Diane. So what's on the page there is, for someone who's watching along, there's a blue shaded area, arguably in the background.
Can I just pause you for one moment, just so for the avoidance of doubt? This is total couple's money, their situation. However, it's just Diane's age.
Correct.
Okay, cool.
It's not Diane's assets, it's the couple assets. This is combined assets. It's using Diane's age at the bottom. It ignores their home value. It ignores their personal assets like car in this case. Their retirement assets, the shaded area in the background is their retirement assets. Close to $600,000 between his super, her super, and the cash in the bank. And it shows that over the next 20, 30 years of the retirement, that is going to start to slowly go down. It'll drop from 580 to it probably hits 400,000 when she turns around 70. It hits 300,000 when they're kind of in their mid to late 70s. It might hit 200,000. But at life expectancy, the net assets there on the left is $200,000. Now, that'll either be in one or either their super funds, etc. along the way. This is in today's dollars. It's present value. So today's spending power. Practically, it'll probably be worth 300 or 400 in 30 years' time, but in today's spending power, they're still going to have $200,000 worth of assets outside of their family home, either in cash or in superannuation funds. That's that blue shaded area.
Awesome. And then the next slide, because we don't want to bore people who are listening only, this is just all the income of the household, but it's just based, again, on Diane's age.
So what this is showing here, and I showed them during the process, and this was the document they got to take away and keep as a projection for the future. Can they retire and live off $75,000 a year in 6 months' time when they retire? Yes. In the first year, there is a big column because we're moving and shuffling money around. So let's ignore that, skip to the second. In the first 2 years, there's a bit of red and there's a bit of bluey, turquoisey colour. The red is income support, what they're going to get from Centrelink. So the first 2 years, David will get a full pension of his share, and the rest, and that's going to be around $22,000 a year, they're going to take $1,000 a week out of his super.
Awesome.
So not touch hers, take $1,000 a week. In 3 years' time, she will be eligible, Diane will be eligible for the age pension, and they'll both get a part pension, take a bit out of both their super funds.
So money's really not their problem in terms of what they want to achieve. You've set them up, optimize tax, optimize the super accounts, optimize income flow, all that stuff.
Peace of mind that their money is going to last and they'll be able to spend and retire, spend what they deserve to spend.
Yeah.
in 10 or 15 years' time, they said, well, we'll probably spend less. We might do less trips and travel.
Yeah.
So we'll potentially drop that down a bit at that point in time. But giving them the peace of mind and confidence to get all the savings and the tax savings now, but also know they can retire in 6 months' time.
Well, how much did it cost them? We will talk about it right after this. Hey, it's Glen here. Thank you so much for watching today's video. You made it to the end. Can I ask a favor? Can you hit that like button and maybe hit subscribe if you want to get notified when we release further videos just like this one, whether you watch the Money, Money, Money podcast or Retire Right. And remember, if you want to learn more about investing, I've got an investing book, The Quick Start Guide to Investing, and there's a link in the description to get your hands on a copy. Thank you so much. Bye.